latest episode of Gallifrey Pirate Radio, which is sort of a special birthday edition for myself. I don't know exactly when this is going to be released, but to begin with, I am your host, Davey Beauchamp. I have not said that in a while, and I'm joined by...
Maya Presley.
And...
Ryan Sinclair.
Which is his first time on the show, even though you have seen his brother and his wife twice now on the show. And we talk about Doctor Who. I'm not really sure what we're going to be talking about, but I just want to talk about Doctor Who in general. Brian, since you've never been on the show, who is your favorite Doctor?
Are you going to follow that up with why?
Why is he... Why? Well, if you watch Doctor Who, where you tend to have a favorite Doctor.
Why is he asking? Or why?
Why? Who's my favorite Doctor is my favorite Doctor.
No, I mean...
I think you have to say why.
No, first...
I mean, they made me say why.
First I want to know who your favorite Doctor is, and then we'll go into the why.
Well, honestly, my favorite Doctor, and it's a bit odd, but my favorite Doctor has always been Davidson.
Really?
Yes, because
I really want to know why.
Although I don't have the clearest memories of watching episodes, he's the Doctor I remember from the furthest back in my memory.
That is awesome. I'll make next time I see Davison, I'll let him know.
Yeah, and I mean, and though the first time I watched the original the Five Doctors is so long ago, he was my favorite in that.
Awesome.
That's
wow.
it.
You saved my day. So wow, I don't even know where to go from there. So you've watched some classic.
A little bit.
And you've watched some New Who.
Yeah.
What do you take from it? I mean, because they were both filmed differently and things like that. I mean, what do you prefer one or the other, or do they each have their own special place in your hearts? Or I mean, how do you feel between the classics and the New Who?
Well, I think that they both have a special place because I think you really have to put classic Who in its era. I mean, and consider what that looked like relative to other television at the time. I mean, if you look at what else, or how things were filmed, how things were done, how things were produced, how budgets were not great. I mean, that's sort of, you have to take all of that into account to really kind of appreciate what they could do with what they had.
And then you're also looking at BBC, which is Britain, versus America, which is, ABC or NBC, your major television networks, which over in Britain, they pay money to have television, the licensing, which limits commercials. So, it's not like here in the States where they generate revenue by the commercial.
Exactly. So you have which meant you had very different television. If you look at American television from the era versus British from the era, you get very different things. So you have to consider this is a British show from that time period. So you have less of the commercialization, longer episodes. But at the same time, it's not exactly a well-funded show by any standards.
No.
But I mean, when you look at that relative to New Who, I mean, it's a modern show with modern sensibilities and a modern appreciable budget that can do a lot more than they could before.
Yeah, and it's also the biggest money. I mean, they're also it's Doctor Who's BBC's biggest moneymaker now.
Yeah,
where it wasn't during classic.
Exactly, it goes from being something of an oddity that they keep around to a flagship, and it's just a very different. It's a very different show in so many ways. I mean, but at the same time, it's not. I mean, it maintains a lot of the same sensibilities. And I think that's, and it stays true to what it is.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, Maya, that's a question I haven't really asked you. I mean, comparing and contrasting New Who to Classic Who, I mean, what do you prefer? I mean, do they each have a special place in your heart? I mean, how do you feel about each of them?
For me, Classic Who is just that, a classic. So that in my world, it belongs with like Alfred Hitchcock Presents and other great sort of iconic things in history.
Twilight Zone.
Yes.
Outer
yes,
Limits?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
All of which I grew up watching. So for me, it's all very caught up in this sort of nostalgic childhood, which then, New Who is a continuation of that. They're doing new and interesting things, but I'm viewing it as an adult. So I almost separate them like the original series and Next Generation. They go together, but I separate them at the same time. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And actually, this brings up an interesting question. I'm going to ask Brian a question. I'm going to ask you a question. Brian, this might be a very strange question to ask. Why do you feel females are more into the New Who versus like the classic Who? Because I know your wife is really big into Doctor Who. I would say even more so than you are.
That's probably fair, yes.
But why do you think that's the case?
I don't think I'm the best person to ask that question of.
Yeah, no, it's just I'm just kind of curious your perspective of the situation.
And I don't know. I mean, it's well, I think part of it is the fact that new Doctor Who just has a wider audience, and I mean that's something that is going to result in just a larger, or at least the appearance of a larger fan base across all sort of all demographics.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot of it is the fact that it is a very much a popular culture phenomenon currently, and that's going to mean that it has a wider appeal across all sort of all groups.
Okay, Maya. Now, we know that Classic Who was really big with guys. I mean, it just really was, because it was a guy show, for the most part. We just had the female companions and stuff like that, but they were there at times to be eye candy for the guys to look at, even though they were strong women. What do you think, because New Who does appeal to women so much, what do you think that they're doing right to keep the male viewer, because they've really added in those love stories with, unfortunately, Rose and the Doctor. I mean, what do you think keeps the guys still watching the show from your point of view?
The female companions have gotten hotter. I mean, let's face it, Martha runs around in skin-tight outfits the entire time that she's on there. Amy with the short skirt, hot, sassy redhead.
Pirate Amy. I'm just saying.
Yeah, right. River's hot. Rose is hot.
But do you think it's just the female attraction, the men's attraction to the female that keeps them watching, or do you think there's something more?
Amusingly enough, I think that it may be something more, and I think that this plays in reverse. So I think that what has happened is, because Doctor Who has become so attractive to women, one of the things that I've heard many times come up with advice to single geek men is, well, are you into Doctor Who? Because if you'll just get into Doctor Who and cosplay as one of the doctors, you can get a girlfriend. And so honestly, I think maybe New Who is so popular with guys because they've realized you can get chicks that way.
Nice. Okay, now this is going to be actually horrible. I'm going to throw it over.
I kind of want to jump back in here. First of all, it's hilarious.
I've actually heard that quite a bit.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow.
I had to use that theory in reverse just once.
Yeah.
Well, no, I've actually heard that said.
I think also, I mean, in terms of comparing, classic to new, I mean, if you think about cultural sensibilities of when Classic Who existed, it was not the best time. I mean, we live in a much better society in a lot of ways regarding the status of women.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I recall I recently went back and watched the 1976 BBC show the Sandbaggers, and wow,
I have not seen this show.
it's It's a Cold War spy show, but it's done somewhat realistically in that it's not very exciting. Most of it takes place in offices with people yelling at each other about what the SIS should do. It reminds me that in the 1970s, the social position of women was not great, and the BBC was not exactly fighting diligently against this. And so it just, the fact that it had for a while a strong female character, or did for a lot of its run, was clearly designed to be anomalous. That was clearly a weird thing it had. And that was just sort of strange, and now when thinking about like classic Who, it's like, well, it seems, British television had this sort of, all television, I suppose, at the time had this problem. Because society had this problem. But there are a lot of reasons for guys to watch New Who that are not related to hot companions or getting a girlfriend, but maybe some do watch it for that, and, well, to each their own, but...
More power to you.
Exactly.
Now, I want to bring this up, because I know neither one of you have kids, and I'm not sure if you're in around kids like this. What do you think the appeal of Doctor Who is to children, especially now with New Who? If you have anything you throw out there, because I know when I talked to AJ Hartley, his kid said that as much as he loved the show, sometimes he would have to hide behind the sofa when a scary monster came out, and that's a term that was coined back during Classic Who with the Daleks. And, his son had never heard that, but he, it's sort of like almost has come over innately from Classic to New Who, and the children are picking up on that. What do you think the appeal overall is with, especially New Who, because they're not really watching Classic all that much. I know some parents are showing it to them, but in the aspects of New Who, why do you think children are so interested in the show?
Well, I think kids now are exposed to a lot of things that probably we would have been grounded horribly for paying any attention to. And with the sort of sheer amount of violence and other things that they're exposed to, I think the Doctor represents still the modern fairy tale, particularly in Matt Smith's run.
Yes.
And the presence of magic and hope and heroes and the idea that there are good men in the world and that ordinary people can make a difference. And I think it appeals to them for the same reason that, My Little Pony appeals to them. Is that at its core, you have a show that is about the virtues of humanity, love, compassion, kindness, friendship, triumphing over hate, fear, vengeance, etc. And I think it's probably one of the few adult shows that they feel they can, they're watching something adult that's maybe a little bit forbidden, but it also has the same sort of hopeful fantasy elements as the kid shows that they're used to.
Interesting. I think it's very, very, very valid.
Yeah.
Wow. I know. I think that's incredible.
And at the same, also at the same time, it's not. It doesn't do anything intentionally to not be a children's show. It doesn't dumb itself down. It doesn't anything of the sort that we might think when we think of children's program. That it stays within some bounds, but.
Yeah, I'll say this. I think it's really sad right now. And not that, that I'm talking Doctor Who's sad, but, we had Sarah Jane Adventures, which was definitely the kids' side of the program. K9 in Australia, in which they eventually did show that in the States and on the BBC, which I keep hearing that they're going to come out with a second season of that, but I still haven't seen that. But then we had Doctor Who, which was the family show. The entire family could watch it together and stuff like that. Yeah. And then we had Torchwood, which was the adult show. I do kind of miss that we don't have those various levels, especially the kids and the family. I mean, we saw the family, which I think is absolutely wonderful and great. But I almost miss that we don't have the child show anymore. Because I mean, that really gave them a chance to, really identify with the companions. Because the companions to like Sarah Jane were all children, or or teenagers, or I guess middle schoolers. And we don't get that right now. And I would really love to see the BBC spin off something new. Though with what Moffat's been doing, I don't think there are any characters that could spin off easily into a children's show.
On the other hand, I think that they could go back and make use of some of the things that have already been included. So we know that Amy spent her entire childhood with Mel's and Rory playing the Doctor. So what if we had a spin-off show that was Amy, Mel, and Rory as kids, sort of a la Adventure Time, running around in their pretend adventures?
Well, the only problem is, where do you get the protagonist? And the problem is that we also seen a young Amy Pond.
That's true. So we know what she needs to look like. So she's already been cast.
Yeah. But no, that could be really interesting. But
Sarah Jane's son,
Luke, which was the adopted son. The only problem is they pretty much sent him off the university. So I think he's sort of aged out of that group. But I mean, there's so many other great companions that they could probably bring back, like Joe Grant.
He's interacted with, like Chloe Webber was fantastic. She was talented. She was interesting. What happened to Chloe Webber?
Which one was Chloe? Sorry.
No, Fear Her.
Oh yeah, that could be interesting. Revisiting some of the other children that have been on the show.
Right, maybe just going through the lives of the children that the Doctor has touched and what it's like for them, because we see how incredibly disruptive and life-altering it can be for an adult. And we sort of saw through Amy what it was like to interact with him as a child, but I don't think we've really dealt with, what does it do to a kid to have the Doctor come into their world?
Oh, what was the episode? I can't remember what it was. I think it was Tenet, where he interacts with those 3 kids just for that brief moment. I think it was on one of the specials. No.
Describe the interaction, not remember.
No, no. I think it was right before Good Man Goes to War. Edge Riversong where she's graduating, and she's talking about, and she interviewed the 3 kids about what it was like meeting the Doctor when they were children. I can't remember the episode, but that could be really interesting. Visiting the kids, and that could be a really good anthology sort of show where you don't have to keep the same cast.
Yeah. And you could add in new people, because the Doctor's been, you could time jump, you could go in the future, you could go in the past, you could go to an alien planet.
You could do your pure historicals again.
Yeah, you could do all sorts of things, and just the only criteria being a kid that the Doctor has touched their life, and what happens? How does it impact them?
Yeah.
Who do they grow up to be as a result?
Awesome. So, before we go too long on stuff, because we go a billion different directions, and we want to sort of keep this short, is there anything else you want to say about Doctor Who, why you like it, why you watch it, why you continue to watch it, and you look forward to watching?
You want to start with this one?
Not particularly. Do you want to?
Okay. I appreciate when sci-fi takes the what's the word I'm looking for? The really cerebral sort of mess with my head approach. And one of the things that draws me back to Doctor Who is the question of, well, what are they going to do about blank? How are they going to handle this? What's going to happen next? And so from that sort of chess game, cerebral, logical place, the reader in me is invested in where the story is going. But from an emotional level too, on the other hand of the spectrum, I've become so ridiculously emotionally invested in the Doctor and all of the companions that the idea of not continuing to watch would be like leaving my family.
So basically, you enjoy the roller coaster ride that you get on various levels, and you just really can't wait to see where the ride's going to take you next.
Basically, I'm an addict. Yes.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
No, I mean, I think that sums it up great. I think anybody that has watched a show for a long period of time, from classic to new or just classic, you know, we get hooked on the ride, we get hooked on the storytelling, and I think the advantage of Doctor Who in itself, the show is about change. If it feels like it's getting stagnant, they could change it, and because it's been changed in the past, it's fine to change it. You expect the change. You wait for the change. And if you don't like Doctor Who at the moment, you know that change is gonna happen, where things get mixed up, shooken up. You know, be it companions, be it setting, be it Doctor, it's gonna happen.
Yeah, because I mean, in general, the show is just fun, and it's exactly that. If there's an aspect of the show that at the particular moment you don't like, you know it's not permanent. You know it's like, well, if this isn't your favorite Doctor, if this isn't your favorite companion, you know eventually that's going to change, but at least in the meantime, it has always been fun.
Yeah.
And the characters and the interactions are always fascinating, are always, I mean, and you really just want to see what's going to happen, so.
Yeah, because I mean, there are three things you know that are going to change. There's going to be the Doctor, there's going to be a TARDIS, there are going to be companions, and actually four things, there's going to be adventure.
Yeah.
And actually, if you want to throw a fifth one in there, they're going to be cool creatures and monsters. But you never know what it's going to be.
And cool creatures and monsters might be mixed with, just for fun, actual bits of history.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's always kind of interesting when you have, you know, the episode, for instance, where it's like, oh, Pompeii, how about that? Or Van Gogh, or, I mean, it's just...
Or the Agatha Christie thing.
The Agatha Christie!
See, I did not know that actually happened in real life, the part where she vanished. And she lost a week.
Yeah.
I mean, she really lost... So I looked that up, and to this day, nobody knows what happened during that week.
And I have to say, for me, that is one of the more amusing parts of Doctor Who, is that you can pick anything in history where you have something completely unexplained, and you can simply say, the Doctor. The Doctor is the answer to this. And it's completely believable and generates really awesome stories.
Exactly.
What other show can you get that from?
Time Tunnel, which isn't on the air anymore.
Give me a hug.
Actually, their last episode, which was the Titanic. Time Tunnel was.
Oh God.
So, before this gets any more bizarre or any sillier, I want to thank both Brian and Maya here for entertaining me on my birthday to talk some Doctor Who. And I think we talked about some really interesting stuff. Until next time, this is GPR episode 146. Signing off until next time. Peace.